Hi all, we're here in Glasgow, in a very chilly Glasgow right now at Scottish Renewables Conference. We'd love to take a chance to reflect on the last 2 days, to talk about some of the key messages and particularly lean into AR7, AR8 and then what's everyone talking about and what's the view going forward. I'm Brosnan.
And I'm John McCaskill and welcome to the Revolting Podcast.
So here we are, we're inside at Scottish Renewables, a hell of a lot warmer right now. So John, how has it been for you?
So really looking forward to, I've been really looking forward to this week. As usual, organisations for me is a little bit last minute.
Yeah.
But all the industry is here. Yeah. I had meeting after meeting after meeting. The vibe for me has been back to a little bit, more positive.
Yeah.
It's
really refreshing.
I don't want to think about what it could have been if it wasn't. We don't need to think about that because it was a good win from an AR7. So the momentum, positiveness, vibes. Everyone who's here has got stuff to do in the industry. So it's there's business going on, right? Yeah, I've loved it. Really, really enjoyed it. Got all my business cards. I'm going to have to then, write them all down and get the emails out and everything else. But it's been brilliant. And for yourself.
Yeah, it's been great. Actually, I was really nervous about, AR7 coming out and positivity around that. And speaking with the supply chain, I think, we have a way forward. We still have a lot of work to do, but hell of a lot more positivity and confidence back in the market. Let's not get giddy. This is the start. It's a really interesting start to 2026 and let's put some meat on the bone and really lean into the opportunity we've been given now. But how did your panel go, John?
Oh, well, when I turned up, the panel was, I really enjoyed it. Yeah. It was a different panel for me. It was one on which I think is becoming more and more important when, with the more public vibe of what's happening in different countries politically and stuff. Yeah. So I think communication was a fantastic idea for Scottish Renewables to put on the panel. Yeah. And the thing was, I was with three great professionals. Yeah. I was introduced as a communication professional, as being a podcaster now classes as
I heard the word content creator recently. I was like, I'm not there yet.
Content creator.
Not there yet.
But it was brilliant. Really enjoyed it. Really important. Great feedback from the crowd after it, as well as a really important sort of topic. Yeah. So honestly, I was one of the panels that I've really enjoyed recently, and I applaud Scottish Renewables for actually putting that on. Yeah. And just a wee plug for them, there's a communications conference that they're holding in March.
I didn't realise that.
Yep, communications conference in March, which I think is a massively important topic.
Hugely important topic in today's environment and getting the messaging right and actually pushing back against some of the, the facts that are being, so-called facts that are being put out there.
And also bits that I'm not exposed to because I'm, on LinkedIn and everything else, you could argue that the audience for me it's like an echo chamber to a degree. Yeah, and then you've got Kirsten and Christine from Thistlewind and Flotation respectively. They hold, they're involved in or have been in stakeholder meetings, which is really at the sharp end of it. If a community is angry about something, even if it's not specifically on the project, it's almost like that release valve that gets it. And so I think communication, the context, trying to sort of educate and communicate, listen is massively important.
Yeah. Yep. And let's have a chat about AR7. I know we touched on it on our last kind of a Bolt podcast. That was new for us. I hope everyone enjoyed that. It's been really, really an interesting time. I mean, reflecting back on our take, I suppose, on that morning, the hot take that day. What's been your reflection here today? Has it lived up to it?
Yeah, I mean. So I've not changed. I'm going to be consistent. I thought it was a win. Yeah. I think the government will be very pleased with the outcome. The industry always wants more, but it was a really sizable piece of capacity on the fixed side. We've got 2 floating projects. So I think it's still a win. It would be a bit sort of, going back and picking at it to be sort of that. It was a win. Based on what it could have been and what some of the discussions or what if it's just kept to the smaller, but it was a definite win. I think there's some interesting things that reflects into what AR8 could be, and the 2 projects geographically placed. It could have been 3 projects, could have been 4 projects, but there's 2 projects, right? So to me, it was a massive win, and I think the feeling and the temperature from this event, to me, tells me that the audience, that the industry, that we as an industry views it as the consensus as positive. That's what I got, and that's
absolutely.
where I still am.
And I think with AR7 and the results, working closely with the likes of DESNZ, and in particular, I suppose, looking at what's happening with CP30, there's a lot of groundwork that's gone into this. You know, looking at changing the dynamics and the structure of that AR7. You had, flexibility around, say, the point of entry for some of the unconsented projects. They had to be at a certain point, allowing them into AR7, and then flexibility around, say, some of the terms as well, moving from 15 to 20-year terms. It's all making a difference. We're still not perfect, but we are seeing signals, from the global Germany
taking
big,
the
big thing this week,
CFDs. Goodbye negative.
Absolutely. We have to take the wins from, look at the hard work that's gone in from our industry, and that's taking the comments, the real genuine comments at the cold face of these auctions and at development in offshore wind, and we are being listened to. We have a hell of a lot more work to do and a lot more restructuring. And looking ahead to AR8 in particular, this further, we've got that out to consultation at the minute. There's a lot of shifts.
And a very interesting consultation.
Consultation.
Sort of more, so I mean, I don't view the consultation as a major rebuild. They seem to be much more nuanced, as in building on AR7, some of the things they've now considered that maybe they should have, that reducing gaming, some changes to the fix, looking at heading towards larger the floating heading towards larger projects, and things like that. So to me, it's corrections, it's adding, it's getting it ready for, it's like planning for the next stage rather than a rebuild, because it worked. AR7, it
has worked. And I mean, things like the clean industry bonuses, I think they were a welcome addition as well to AR7, and we will see those continue on to AR8.
So how do you see, how do you see that? Because that's the next, so obviously, they're designed, it's not in the act, but it's designed sort of almost in sort of parallel and stuff, but that's the next thing is the CIB. Where do you see that sort of landing and the benefits, but also maybe any risks that we need to watch for or uncertainties?
There were 2 pots in essence. Like, there was a pot around the CFD, and then there was what I call loosely the top-up pot, which was around the CIBs. You were looking at about 20.1 million per gigawatt on the CIBs, or the clean industry bonus area. So you were looking at a pot of about just over 540 million in essence, off the back of an 8.4 gigawatt auction. So these would be targeting its supply chain, supporting domestic manufacturing, domestic services coming into the industry. It'll be interesting to see how this pot now is discharged into the communities. It'll be looking at deprived areas. So leaning into those communities, I think, is going to be a really, really one to watch over the next quarter, where we get a little bit more granularity on where these are going to go. But this is really important. I think bringing that through into AR8 and looking at some of the shifts and bringing in things like deep water technology, that's out for consultation at the minute.
And will we see CIB in AR8 as well?
Will,
do you think?
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
CIB has been tipped as well to go into AR8, looking at that continuity where there's
which is what we need. I mean, that's one of the things. I mean, I know obviously there's always going to be a consultation because there's always changes needed, because the industry as it is going into AR7 is slightly different than it is in 12 months' time. But I think a level of continuity is massively important. And it's a demonstration that it works.
Absolutely. Like, investors react to that security and knowing where their platform is, knowing where the basis is, and having that visibility as well of where the change is going to come. And I think, these tweaks as we go through the AR rounds is really important to make sure that we have the investor confidence, but equally make sure that the developers can line up their farm downs as well when it comes to FID. So having that visibility, we saw RWE having KKR come in really, really early. I think it was the same day actually.
It was like announcement boom. So that was like a hierarchy of was it embargoed communications board, green light. You can imagine all the boardroom comms to get that issued.
Absolutely, that domino effect is so good to see in our industry. And yes, there are risks there. Yes, we've a lot of work to do. I cannot understate the amount of work we have to do out here at the minute. This is not a slam dunk. we have turned a corner. Let's not
We
get
can't
giddy
rest on
again.
our laurels on
Exactly.
this.
Yeah.
We wanted a positive Q1. We talked about that.
Yep.
We wanted what we wanted from Santa.
Yeah, big time.
Was a positive Q1. This builds on that, and for the next for the next month, 6 weeks or so, developers are sort of getting the plans out. Right, okay, we've got this, we've got that. So making decisions, how fast, how slow, the strategy they're moving forward. So in so to me, quarter 2, quarter 3, that's when the supply chain things will start to move, but this has primed that. This has pushed that. I mean, we are the leader, outside China, but in terms of accessible markets, we are the biggest global market in offshore wind. This must be a bellwether positive for our technology for offshore wind.
Absolutely.
Globally, in Europe and globally.
Yeah. And I think, looking at those market signals globally, it's so, leaning into emerging markets. We've seen a lot of bad news and negative news and pullbacks on some of the emerging markets. Some of it was the right thing to do and focus and get your ducks in line, get farms over the line. Deliverability is key, and farming down and recycling the cash. We've got the pathway now to looking at how you recycle the cash. And I would expect the developers to lift their heads a little bit more over the next coming years to look in and move into emerging markets. So I think it's very positive from a global perspective. I think, especially looking at stateside, having the 4 projects in the US come back up online.
Yeah,
that's a huge decision this week as well.
And the discussions I've had this week is, we don't know what the US is going to be like in 2 or 3 years time, even before the election. Things can happen so quick. You get the change in the houses, you get different, it's the challenges that you then get the executive orders become a lot harder for him to try and sort of roll back if he's lost the Senate, if he's lost Congress. It'll give the blue states more confidence to try and protect and push the projects. So we could see a thawing out. It will still take a period of time because they've lost confidence. Talking about emerging markets. So I'm in Bucharest at Black Sea Energy Week next week, an emerging market with its own challenges in that sector, but they're looking at the UK. I will be getting, there'll be questions there about the UK market. How can they learn? What lessons can they take? And I think that's a really important. I think that's a really important aspect for the UK is that we are. That didn't work, but this thing does work. We under AR5, AR6, now AR7, moving on to AR8. I think we can not be over positive, but I am
realistic.
I am definitely pint half full at the moment.
I really worried about our industry, and I think this is a welcome start to 2026. Yeah, we're not getting giddy. I will be the first to knock the giddy out of someone very quickly if we get too ahead of ourselves. We've a lot of work to do. There's a lot we need to lean into in the first half of this year. But there was another big announcement this week, and that was around the North Sea corporations.
Yes.
And what was your thoughts on that?
So the week before it crept up on me that it was happening. I'll be really honest with you, and so it can only be so. There's an element of it that can only be positive.
Yeah.
I think there's some really interesting. So somebody mentioned, and you could, there is an argument that says it was the last one with the name, with the year scrolled out and the new one put in, right? But this had Mark Rutte at it from NATO, right? So security, and in today's world, which is totally different from 12 months ago, today's world is so different from a geopolitics standpoint. Security now means security, right? So. Basically, they are, Europe needs to stand on its own 2 feet, energy-wise, always has been, but I think it's got a different sharpness to it, it's got an edge to it.
Absolutely.
So with NATO there, so basically it's European wind, European power, European equipment, European security. So I think that's right, but it's an interesting thing for the UK.
Exactly. What are we going to get from this? And how can we supply everything within Europe? Do we need to
can we? But also, is there anything for the UK?
Yes, absolutely.
Are we just going to be putting in German, Dutch and Danish equipment? So we end up being a windy customer to all this equipment. Obviously, we were expecting, some of us were expecting an announcement about the Mingyang factory this week.
Absolutely, I missed out the
And that's been pushed back.
Yeah.
Primarily because of this, I think. In that we've got a whole bunch of partners that are not really wanting a Chinese factory, to be brutal about it, in that European area. So I think it's put a question mark against that, whether it's been pushed back to have a conversation for understanding, or whether it's been pushed back because actually it's maybe not possible now. I'm not sure, but I think it demonstrates that even if something's positive for jobs, it's positive for floating. Mm-hmm. There's such a geopolitical angle to it that it could be okay for those and still maybe has the wrong decision for our industry.
Yeah.
But because other things are coming into it. So I don't know what was your thoughts around the signing on Monday?
Look, I think it was really instrumental, particularly for balancing. We see a lot of curtailment in the grid at the minute, and that opportunity, and we've talked about this, and this actually went back to Eddie O'Connor in his early inception around supergrid.
Yeah.
And
a topic that's probably worthwhile doing it.
Absolutely, I think it'd be great to get them in, and in particular Leslie is leading the charge. His daughter is very much leaning into this as supergrid, and I think that would have been something he would have smiled down on us. Yes,
that's actually true. I hadn't thought about that.
A really nice. I think it was a really nice signal. We're finally leaning in and seeing that opportunity.
Give it a bit of momentum and a bit of drive. I just thought that it just seemed a bit more serious.
Yes, it certainly is.
The
and
view
there's an urgency?
Absolutely. It's kind of, we just need to get this done now.
Yeah.
But that means it might be done at a cost, and we need to be very honest with consumers.
Yes.
There's a price to security.
It is. And the timing, I personally like the timing, and I don't like the person out west. So I thought, it was a nice complimentary signal to, some of the greater powers that are to the west of us here, but very much like, no, we are going to forge our own path here. And we're embracing turbines. I mean, look, Trump was very critical of offshore wind and turbines full stop in Davos. So it's very much, how do we lean back and create our own pathway forward. So will we leave it there, John?
I think so. I've got a train to catch.
Yeah. So I'm only down the road, so I'm going to get my nearest mode home. So thank you very much thank you very much to everyone today for joining us. Please get your comments in. We'd love to hear how supply chain is reacting, in particular to the recent announcements. Comment.
They're the advocates to convince that to convince the voting public. It's those. From the panel, it is the supply chain that are the real advocates.
Yeah, absolutely. We cannot do this without supply chain. So please let us know your thoughts. I'm Una Brosnan.
I'm John McCaskill. And before I do the sign off, please, it helps us, subscribe to whatever platform you're on. Subscribe to the podcast, engage, leave comments. So until we chat again, keep the rotors turning and the heads banging.
Thank you.